G'day, Andrew Price here, back with some more dream shattering. This is the focus critique session, or maybe coaching is a better word. That's what they call it in the game community, where somebody dispenses advice. So that's what I'm going to do for Blender artwork. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go, hey, fix that, and we're just going to go through each piece and talk about ways that the image could be improved. So we received 70 pieces of artwork over the last month from the Blender Guru Facebook page, which is how you send it in. And I've gone through and I have picked out 7 images based from beginners all the way to advanced users to some stuff in between. I tried to find a good range of different themes as well. So characters, cars, architecture. So let's just get into it. This first image here comes from, why are they always such difficult names? Abhijith S. Nath, who says, spot of tea, an old render. Love to get some feedback on it, Andrew. Okay, so the first thing you want to think about when you're approaching any scene is, what are you trying to say? What is the message? What is the whole point of this image? Because even if it's a experiment or a basic scene like this, you still need to be saying something with it. And I think in this sort of scene, you're trying to capture a mood. You're trying to capture a time frame. Early morning. It's that coffee feeling. Hashtag biscuits and scones or whatever you're going to do. You're trying to capture that feeling. But really, the focal point, the whole draw to this image is this coffee here, okay? And I know that because that's where you've set the depth of field, which, by the way, I would go easy on the depth of field. You've got it so that just that rim there and that rim there is in focus. Everything else is out of focus, like even the front and back of the rim there. So you definitely need to increase the range of it so you can see more of the scene. But you want that to be in focus. Currently, there is a conflict in your scene because all the focus is actually being drawn to that area there and that area right there. And actually, before I forget, let me turn off this F-Lux thing because I'm worried that it's going to be interrupting the recording. But anyways, you've got those areas, and they are the bright areas of your scene because it's an open window and it's some bloom coming off this jug here. So the eye is automatically drawn to areas of contrast. So what that means is that with those bright areas there, it's constantly fighting for attention with this coffee cup there. So rule of thumb, never have anything bright in the background unless it's deliberate and you know what you're doing. So in this case, if you were to just get rid of that, I think even that would improve it considerably, right? And that as well. I don't know. Let's pick that color. Okay, so even just doing that, we can see that now the focus is a lot clearer. We can focus on, just the stuff down there. So you've got a bit of bloom coming off the edge of this vase thing here, right? So I don't know if you are using it already, but make sure you're using the Filmic color management system because that will enable you much more color range. So you should be able to do that. And then what you want to do is you want to point the lighting so that it's pointing on this coffee cup here. Like bring the lighting onto what you actually want to be the focus of your scene, which is that coffee cup. So I went on to 500 Pix here, which is a great site if you want to waste some time. No, it's a great site if you if you want to look at what professional photographers are doing. Basically it's just got a bunch of professional photos. So here are a couple of examples of some scenes. This one here. And this sort of gives you an idea like how it looks without that conflicting background. The attention is much more clearer and we know that we're looking at just some coffee cup and a little whatever this thing is, right? Same with this one here. That one's got a bit more going on in it, but still the attention is on the coffee. I don't know. You could do something with some vintage cups. But it just gives you an idea. So I like 500 Pix for that matter because they're professional photographers and they're really nice photos. So bring the attention right on that coffee cup and it will improve immensely. And also, this is just a personal preference, but I'm not a big fan of just the white coffee cup, because you could there's a lot of room there. You could be saying something else. You could have a tin cup, a copper cup. You could have it's beaten up, or it's got fingerprints all over it, or something else. I just think you could be saying a lot more, since you've got a limited amount of assets in your scene by which to tell a story. You could do more by having an interesting coffee cup. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with it, but there it is. So thank you for that, Abhijith. Next person is a fella called Marson Art, who just says butcher room. So, hell of a butcher's room. Okay? Something tells me this butcher might be struggling to fill his vacant position. People just walk in on the first day and nope right out of there. Okay, I'm assuming that this is a repurposed butcher's room by a serial killer or something. Otherwise, what's with the bloody handprints everywhere? Is it just a really sloppy butcher? And if so, why is it fresh red blood when everything is so horribly dirty? Anyway, let's just assume it's like a torture room, right? Okay, so like this is a really complicated scene to do, so I commend you. These rundown sort of scenes, they sound fun at the start, and then you realize how much work is involved, making everything textured and grunged up. It's just a never-ending nightmare. So, I mean, yeah, let's talk about the textures. So, there's problems. So you've got like clean tiles all over the wall, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles that are completely smashed. So the other tiles don't have any dents or scrapes or anything on, like any cracks, I should say. They're just completely clean. So there's a little bit of a conflict there. It doesn't really make much sense to me that they would be the only ones touched. So have a look at some reference photos of some abandoned houses. So I went and I just typed in abandoned kitchen into Google and came up with a few images. So, because this is something, and it really separates the pro artist from the amateur artist, and I would class myself in that latter range, by the way, when it comes to texturing. I've got a long ways to go, but good texturing, the best texture artists, they have really good reference photos, and they know what story they're trying to tell, and they can, they know basically which areas they need to dirty up in order for it to look realistic. So in your case, you've got, just what you would call grunge, basic grunge, of what looks like somebody's like scraped some black crayon on the wall, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I can understand, you would see scrape marks closer to the shelf maybe than everywhere else, but still, it just seems like there's just grunge that's just being thrown around in a sort of haphazard way. So that's not the greatest. What I do love, I love this floor down here on the ground. That looks fantastic. I love that. The little glass that's shattered there from that oil lantern or whatever. Fantastic. Love it. This chain here, not so great. It looks like it would be big enough to hold back King Kong. It's way too big. And also this chain here is swaying, is it? Like it's pointed. It's like there's a breeze that's blowing it that way, which doesn't make sense because the rest of the scene looks completely static. So I mean, the floor looks pretty good. I'm not a big fan of these floorboards. It looks pretty fake the way it's, been chopped up, but, not so bad. Oh, hey, look, I just noticed there's actually a message on it. It says, kill me, help me. Written it in blood. Huh. Help me. Maybe she shouldn't be asking her murderer for help. Maybe she was supposed to put it up on the window, but she forgot. Anyways, okay, cool. Little Easter egg. Just realized that. Not bad. Okay, so, right. What was I going to say? Okay, so compositionally with this, this window here, like what I mentioned for Abhijith, is that this window here is the brightest element in the scene. So your eye is drawn there, unfortunately, which is not great for this because there's nothing outside the window. It looks like there could only be a wall there because that's all I can see through it. So it's the brightest element and there's no point to it. So I think this scene would be a lot stronger if the window was right here and the light was streaming across there and you've got shadows coming off the hooks. You've got all sorts of stuff. I think it would be a lot stronger if it was over there. And you also wouldn't have to deal with this annoying translucency, this smudging stuff on the glass, which is, I can see you're struggling with. So yeah, that would be what I would suggest to improve the scene. But honestly, this is a tough one, Martin. So you've done very well given the subject. So well done. Next one. This one comes from a Misha Kaiser. Misha Kaiser. What does Kaiser mean? I feel like that's a German word. Kaiser. Or is it? Maybe that's Scheiser. That's what I'm thinking of. Misha Kaiser. My best render so far. Hope I can get some tips to improve. Best render so far. Oh no. That means if I critique it, I'm really, really shutting you down, aren't I? Okay. So, I mean, you've sent this in to get some, you want to improve as an artist. So yeah, I know that I can give you some critiques. So this is pretty good. Honestly, this is a cool idea. I haven't done one of these steampunky things because I know how much work it is, and I'm like, all those cogs and wheels. No, thank you. But you've done it. That's a lot of work. So well done on that. The biggest thing, and again, it's the same thing that affected Abhijit, Marcin, and now you, is that the focal element is on this giant abdomen of the spider there. It is huge. It is the brightest, most contrasted area of the whole scene. So you open it up and you can't help but go like, oh, what is that, an egg? Like, what's going on there? It's huge, okay? So things you could do. Okay, for one, I think that the spider's head should be pointing this way. So rotate it 180 degrees. And that's not just because of this composition thing, but you want to see the face of the creature. The whole point of this image is the creature, and the fact that he's pointing away from the camera and we can't see his eyes, I don't know, it's a human thing. You want to see the face of the thing that you're scared of in this case, right? You want to be able to look at it. So I think really it would be a lot stronger if he was pointed towards the viewer. So give that a shot, and I think it'll improve a lot. And that will improve automatically this composition because it won't be the biggest thing in the thing anymore. The thing. But also something you could do is if you made it instead of bronze or gold, if you made it glass, and then in the glass you had more machine workings. I know that would require more work on your half, but I think the scene would improve a lot because it would no longer have it would no longer be this hard metal which is so contrasted. So I think that would improve a lot. So the other thing I would mention is that these cogs here are too small, right? Like when I first opened it up, I was like, oh, what are those weird like wheels or like thin lines of something going on there? And it was only when I zoomed right in that I was able to see they were cogs. So I think they should be chunkier, sort of like how big these other cogs are. I mean, maybe not that big, but something like, you know what I mean, where you can actually see the cogs, and so it would actually make sense that they would be there, right? I don't know. I think it would be a lot stronger because then you could actually sort of get a feel that this is a functional little tiny machine, and it could look quite cool. But other than that, it's a pretty cool scene, Misha. So well done on getting this far. I hope you can push it that last extra 5%, spin it around and do something with the abdomen. I think it'll improve massively. And put a little face on it, Go in there with the steampunk goggles and do all that stuff. Get right into it. All right. Thank you, Misha. This next image comes from the most conflicting name in regards to its subject, YOLO. YOLO Online. The reason I say it's conflicting is because this is like a really thought-provoking image. You would never guess that it would come from YOLO Online. He's always fooling us, the old switcheroo. Hey, a while back I made this image, and before doing a very high-res final render, I hope to get some feedback maybe. If so, thank you so much. Also, your controllers, blah, 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 blah. Thank you. Okay, YOLO. Okay, so there's not a lot to critique technically, because it's pretty sound. But there is some ways that it could be improved as an image overall, and the biggest thing I think is what's going on here, right? Like, it's a cool concept, right? This, mini world with a ladder going up to the moon. We've seen similar things. I think Pixar had a pretty similar, thing going on in one of their shorts. But what is actually going to happen? What are we supposed to take away from this image? What are you trying to tell us? what in the devil is going on here, YOLO? He's got a ladder that doesn't quite meet the moon, so is he going to make a jump for it? What's he going to do? Is it supposed to be telling us that we always want what we can't have? Also, why does he want the flower? I know this isn't like a PC thing to say, but you're going for a blatantly obvious sort of story here to try and tell. It would help if you use something that would make sense. Why is a man going after a flower? Yes, men can like flowers. I'm talking about basic hero archetypes and characters in stories. Generally, flowers are interesting to girls, just broads in general, dolls and things. So if this was a girl with a little ponytail, that would make more sense. Maybe if it was a little girl, even more. Generally, men only want flowers in order to give it to somebody that they love. But we already know, since we can see the whole world, that he's the only one left on it. So why does he want that flower? Doesn't really make sense. What if it was gold? I think that would make more sense. And then you'd be saying something, I don't know, it would be more interesting because it's like, oh, so it's the classic everybody wants to get richer sort of concept, right? But this flower, I don't know. Doesn't say a lot to me, and I can't figure out what you're trying to say with the ladder. It's close enough that he could get to it if he reached. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you've got to be clearer in your story in this sense, because that's really all you've got going for this. Because it looks like the sort of image that would get your attention if you saw it on Facebook, because it'd be like, ooh, what's this political image about or something. But then you look at it and you go, I don't get it. Move on, So, yeah, work on that. Technically, I think also I wouldn't go with the space nebula in the background here, because I can see you've turned down the brightness so that it's not the brightest thing in the image, which is good compositionally, but you can't turn the exposure on a JPEG down very far, so what you get is this washed out gray look of these highlights, which isn't great. So unless you had an HDR of some Stardust, which is unlikely, don't bother with it. I would just use stars. Keep it simple. Remember that the focus is on what you've got here, which is the foreground. So don't worry about it. Just use stars. The other thing to mention as well is that you've got a tangent error here, because his hand, which I guess is doing that. No, from that angle, if I rotate my head enough, right? So he's going like that, but we can't see his arm. If you rotated him a little bit more, you would see the arm and it would make more sense. But with just seeing the arm there, it's like that could be a nose, right? From back here, you're sort of like, what is that? And you go, oh, okay, it's a hand, I get it. But it's a tangent error. So just rotate his arm a little bit so that you can see it, and I think it'd be better. But that's it. I guess you could improve the texturing on the moon as well. It's not the best texturing. And I think you might even have some normal problems, because you got some shadows on this side of that little moon bump thing, and then you got shadows on this side of that thing, shadows on that side. So you've got lights all around it. I don't know what's going on. But anyways, that's it. Thank you, YOLO. All right. Next one from Uditya Afandi, who have sent in. This is the second time you've been on these videos, because you keep doing these awesome characters. So I will keep critiquing them. Here's my next entry for your next Blundergood critique. Really need some constructive feedback, because a lot of comments that I get from the community are not really a critique. I mean, yeah, some people are really giving me some good advice, but ... But what? What else are they telling you? Okay, so I will give some advice based on what I learned when I was doing my 2D art challenge, because I was heavily into characters, and female characters at that, because they are much more pretty than a male, as I'm sure you've learned from every single artist in history. It's just an unspoken rule. Don't bother with the men, just do the women, right? So yeah, I've done a few images, a few paintings that were very, very similar to this. So let me tell you what I learned. For one, if you're going to do a character, it's much better to do the character with a bit of perspective an angle to the face. So it's much better if the character is facing like this, like where I am to the camera, right, like that, rather than dead on. If you're looking at dead on, right, like that, it's very boring, and you could even say it's a little bit uncanny because it's just sort of like this, you know? It's a little bit freaky. Whereas if it's a little bit like that, and another thing is if you can create an interesting expression on the face, it'll really, really help to, it just makes it look so, it makes it look like you know what you're doing, because expressions are hard. You'd think it's easy until you try it, and then it's difficult, because to do it properly, you have to make sure that the right muscles are moving, the eyes aren't doing the wrong thing when this thing is going up. But if you can get an expression in there, like a little smirk or something like that, yeah, it'll look a lot stronger. The biggest thing that I think is wrong with the image is the eyes are way too... What just happened there? Oh, well, it already did my change from before. But I'll show you again what I was thinking. I think that these eyes are just... They're way too big. What's going on there with my mouse? Okay. So I'm just going to dial them back. Now, I know that you're going for a stylized character, but I don't think the size of these eyes match the rest of the face. I think you've gone too big. Because I think even if you, like, I think, and most people do this, I did this as well, by the way. A lot of my pictures had eyes that were way too big, and it just looked weird at the end of it. So I think a lot of artists think that they can get away with big eyes because, you know, that's what anime does, and those eyes are huge, right? But I think that for one, you've got to know what you're doing when it comes to stylizing a character, because you have to know, like, if you're going to push one part and exaggerate one part, you have to make other parts exaggerated as well. Okay, I completely mangled that. My apologies. But I think it could be... I'll go back because I did a better job the first time when I wasn't recording. Let's do that. There we go. Okay. But, okay, so this is the before and after. I think, like, a very slight change, but I think going from way too big to... It just helps it just a little bit. So I think just dial back those eyes considerably, and I think it would improve a lot. I think the eyelashes as well, I think they're way too heavy. It just looks almost like a spider's leg. Like you've got way too much fur coming from this eye here. So dial that back, I think. Speaking of hair, the hair is cool. It's very realistic, but it looks too messy. I think... and the reason that's a bad thing is that it's drawing too much attention to the hair. And since the rest of the character is all about, you know, cute, innocent, and perfect, the hair really doesn't match the rest of the scene, in my opinion. So I would work on that. To show you an example of... so this artist, Carlos Ortega Elizalde, yes, right. Elizalde does some fantastic work. And you'll see that his eyes are pretty big, like on his characters. They're still, you know, quite big. Probably not as big as yours was, though, like from before. Like yours is pretty big there. But you can see that he sort of gets away with it. He does some interesting expressions with the face, which I think is quite, it really helps. But you can see he's also making use of having the character's head tilted at different angles. Rather than having it like dead on to the camera, like you can see, actually, I would say that the ones where it's dead on with the camera are probably his weakest works. Like that one right there, maybe. When it's tilted, it feels a lot nicer. So yeah, interesting expression. But yeah, so that's something to use as a reference if I were you. I've also I keep a collection on ArtStation, stylized 3D as well as stylized 2D. So if you want to, I'll put links for those in the YouTube description. If you want to have a look at what I think is good stylized artwork, you can have a look through here. I mean, I'm not the best artist, but this is just in my opinion. I think stylized stuff is actually very difficult to do well. And some artists just do it really, really well and others struggle with it. But anyways, so I'll put these links in there. But that's really most of the advice I would give you, because that's what's going to help you the most. I think the lighting is good enough. I think the background's good enough. I think it's pretty well spot. Like you've got like looking straight at the camera. The focus is right where it needs to be. It's just that anatomy. And I think that you want to work on that because that is what you're making loads of characters and you're doing a really good job of it. Just got to focus on anatomy. So if you haven't read and studied anatomy yet, I'd really, really recommend it. Proco.com has some good courses on there. But yeah, give it a shot. All right, this next one comes from an Alexander Bombelli, who has said, worked quite hard on this model, trying to achieve a realistic. I think it's quite minimalistic. I'd like to know what you think about this render, yada, yada, yada. Would appreciate a review on it. Okay, sure, sir. Biggest thing that sticks out to me when I see it is the glare is a bit much. It's a little heavy, so it just sort of has this hazy effect because the whole thing is glaring. So dial that back just a smidge. The other thing is that I think, like lighting for a car, the way the pros do it, like I saw a video, I'll find it and I'll put it in the YouTube description. But it was like a photography school, and they were doing a live demonstration on how to light a car in a showroom, and they used these giant lights, which are like from a garage, and it's like perfection, like trying to get this highlight here to line up exactly across there so that it shows the form of the car and doesn't get tangled up in the reflection. Like really, once you've got a car, the rest of it, the way it's rendered, is all about the lighting. So it's a finicky thing to get it to look right, but if you can do it, I think it would really improve. So have a look at that video because that'll tell you more than I could. The only other things I would mention is maybe get rid of the number plate because I think it's a little bit distracting. And play around with different camera angles and see what works, what doesn't work. But the modeling is really good. Like, look how detailed this tire is. You can, yeah, that's really detailed. So well done there. And there's not, there's a slight, this door isn't lining up perfectly with that other reflection. But look, honestly, it's pretty good. So well done there, Alexander. Don't have much to say on that. It's all about the lighting. Oh, and also the floor as well. I don't know if that's dirt or fabric, but generally for a showroom photo, it is either asphalt or it is concrete with a little bit of reflection. So those are the two things I would mention. But composition, it's great. It's nice. Just work on that lighting. All right. The final one that I will be critiquing is from a Manish. Tiagi. Right. Oh yeah, this is that crazy talented person. Because you have said, big fan, I'm using Blender since 1 month. Really? Really? 1 month? I don't know about that. I'm going to call you a bluff. I have to say, you can't have been using Blender for 1 month. If you have, I am in deep fear. Because the next generation of artists, if you're learning this much in 1 month, you're going to be flying through the industry. So this is really good for, like most architectural renders from beginners look awfully, just horrible shadows everywhere. But this is clean. It's easy to read. So that's, yeah, honestly, for a 1 month render, this is great. But now we're going to rip it to shreds. So, why did the architect fear natural lighting so much in this setting, right? Can we not have a window, right? Anything, some skylight, going through the rafters or something. The reason I say that is that if you don't have it, the architecture feels very artificial and plasticky, and sorry for that. My Apple Watch is telling me to breathe. It just looks, it looks a little bit plasticky. So work on that in any way. And also, if you can't put a window in, maybe you did this for a project where you had to make the classroom and this happened to be your sad classroom, so you can't put a window in. Well, put some plants in then. Put something to give it some natural life, because if you don't have any nature in there at all, yeah, it feels too harsh. The other thing is that I don't think this floor makes sense, right? What is that floor? I've never seen. Here's a good rule to remember. If you show a render to someone and they can't tell you what a material is made of, whether that's plastic, marble, whatever, that's a sign that you haven't got the material right yet. So somehow, like this looks way too rough, like so it's got that big reflection there. I think it should be lino, which is like the plastic tile strips that they use in schools and stuff. It's really cheap and easy to maintain. So I think it should be something like that. I think that would look more realistic in my opinion. Yeah, you could put I don't know, a bit more dirt on the walls or something where people have stuck up, something and they tore it off and there's a little mark. Walls aren't really ever perfectly clean. Maybe yours are, I don't know. But look, I mean, you've even done the air conditioning. You've got a little sticker for the energy efficiency of the aircon. That's pretty good. Honestly, that's why I don't think this is a 1 month render. Like, that's pretty crazy that you would go to that much detail. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. The floor is the biggest glaring thing. Get some natural light in there or some plants. Dirty up the walls a smidge. Other than that, the only thing I can say is that this is a really boring image. There's nothing else in it. If you showed this to someone, if they're a 3D user, they'll go, oh, cool, nice lighting, nice. And if they're not a 3D user, they'll go, why are you showing me? Right? Because there's nothing in it. You're not saying anything with this image. It's just a classroom. We've lived in classrooms, most of us, for 12 years of our life. There's nothing interesting here. Have a bit of fun with it. What stories could you tell? Maybe the gravity just turned off and all the chairs are floating up to the ceiling. That could be interesting. Maybe there's some missing child poster on the corkboard over there, right? And there's a desk with all the things still on it, right? Child abduction, interesting. What else? You could have all the papers and pens and stuff on the floor, like students have just torn out of the classroom because the bell's ringing and there's a teacher with like a head in her hands, exhausted. Right? Anything at all. You don't have to do much, but anything would make this image better, right? It's like they say, like in first aid classes, like if somebody isn't breathing, pretty much anything you do is going to be better than just standing there watching. Even if you just kick them in the ribs, it's better than them not breathing. So it's pretty easy to improve. So have a go at injecting any sort of story or interest into this, and I think it would improve a lot. But that is it. Thank you, Manish, and thank you to everybody who sent in their work for critique. There were 70 of you. I picked out the 7. If you would like to appear in the next YouTube video where I do constructive critiques, I do them at the end of the month. So this one was, I guess, a little late, but it was for June. To do it, you just go to facebook.com/BlenderGuru. And then while you're still here, you just add your image to the page. Okay, so where did it go? There it is. Write something. So you would just paste it in here. So I would say hashtag BG critique, made this in 20 seconds, whatever, right? And then you just add in your render. And that's it. And then at the end of the month, I go through and I find everything with BG critique, and then I pick a bunch of them to critique. So, thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up so others can find it, and I will see you next time. Bye.